Good morning, everyone. I declare open the first session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee on the United Nations Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation and call its first plenary meeting to order. I will now deliver an opening statement. I am pleased to welcome you to the first and second sessions of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee on the United Nations Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation and its two early protocols. We stand at the outset of an ambitious, fast-moving process with 10 sessions. I call them 10 opportunities ahead of us to shape a new era of global tax cooperation. The path to success demands not only our wisdom and expertise, but also our full engagement, focus, and collaboration. These plenary meetings are a pivotal moment that sets the tone and direction for our work. The feedback gathered during these meetings will serve as a compass for our technical work streams and shape the proposals to be presented to the General Assembly in 2027. I noted that hundreds of member state representatives had attended the work stream's daily meetings that took place since May 2025 with a very active interaction on a genuinely equal footing basis. The process is designed so that every member state has the right and the opportunity to attend, to co-lead, and to contribute to any of the work streams without exceptions. Even for those member states unable to join every intersessional discussion, there are ample opportunities to review, comment, and influence the outcomes. These processes of member states' consultation and discussion in plenary sessions are designed to include everyone, leaving no one behind. Furthermore, rounds of public consultations are built into our roadmap at each milestone, ensuring that all voices are heard, including those of civil society, the private sector, and other stakeholders. We are also making use of interactive virtual meetings to break down barriers and widen participation even further. The process is designed to guarantee maximum inclusivity and efficiency. We are determined that no single country or group will dominate or steer our discussions. This is a process of genuine partnership built on respect, transparency, and equality. Excellencies, the work of this committee follows a phased approach, starting with identifying gaps and issues with the delivery of the final and ends with the delivery of the final text of the Framework Convention and the two protocols. Those are our final products that we need to focus on. The co-leads notes released on 27th of June capture the breadth of the rich and substantive discussions held throughout our technical meetings to identify the gaps. I argue you to treat them as a strategic starting point for our deliberations over the coming days. Additionally, the fruitful input received from international organizations, civil society, academia, and the business sector bring valuable perspectives to our work. Excellencies, these sessions present a significant opportunity to advance in this process. Let us maximize these sessions and ensure they drive meaningful progress. Every contribution, every exchange is a building block in what we are constructing together. I argue you to remain focused, engaged, and purposeful in our deliberations. Finally, I want to express my deep appreciation to the co-leads for their leadership and to all the member states and the stakeholders for their continued engagement. The diversity of perspectives brought to this process is essential to building a more inclusive, balanced, and effective system of international tax cooperation, one that reflects the needs and priorities of all jurisdictions. Before continuing, please allow me to announce that as part of this works program, there will be no plenary meetings on Thursday, 7th August. Instead, several important engagements will take place regarding the planning for regarding planning from here to Nairobi. And in particular, there will be a dialogue with civil society from 1:45 to 2:45. These touch points will help ensure continued alignment and momentum across all areas of our work. I now give the floor to Ms. Sherry Spiegel, Director of the Financing for Sustainable Development Office of the Department for Economic and Social Affairs. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you, Chair. And it is really my pleasure to welcome everybody here and to see a full room as we start the discussions over the next 2 weeks. As you all know, we just completed the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development in Sevilla. And the Sevilla commitment was approved by consensus. And member states committed to continue to engage constructively in the negotiations on the United Nations Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation and its protocols, and encourage support for the process. The commitment speaks directly to the broader significance of the importance of this convention. It reflects a shared understanding that international tax norms must evolve to keep pace with global changes. They need to be flexible and resilient, but at the same time, they must serve all member states and promote sustainable development. As you know, tax is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end for sustainable development. And the idea that international tax cooperation must support sustainable development was powerfully affirmed in the Sevilla commitment. The commitment recognizes that in a globalized and increasingly digitalized world, domestic efforts must be complemented by international cooperation to effectively mobilize domestic revenues, and that existing international tax rules often do not fully respond to the needs, priorities, and capacities of developing countries. So the Framework Convention that we'll be discussing in the next 2 weeks can contribute to sustainable development by ensuring that tax rules reflect the needs and priorities of member states, and by supporting them in their efforts to mobilize domestic resources to support sustainable development. As this is the first substantive session of the process, today marks a significant milestone in this process. There's actually 2 substantive sessions, as you know, back to back, and that we're opening today. They're really essential steps in the journey toward drafting the United Nations Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperations and the initial protocols. Allow me to briefly recount how we have reached this point. Our journey began in 2002 with a mandate from the General Assembly to strengthen international tax cooperation. This was followed by the General Assembly establishing the ad hoc committee that produced the terms of reference for the convention, and then establishing this negotiating committee. And following our organizational session last February, the negotiating committee began its substantive work. As the chair noted, it's already put in place robust technical work plan, which is structured around the three thematic work streams, each tasked with drafting one of the legal instruments envisioned by this process. Work stream 1, as you all know, focuses on the Framework Convention itself. Work stream 2 on the protocol on taxation and income from cross-border services in an increasingly digitalized economy, and work stream 3 on the protocol on prevention and resolution of tax disputes. In May and June, member states met almost daily to develop the issues note that we will be discussing over these next 2 weeks. And the level of engagement, as the chair noted, has been very high, with often over 100 delegates from all regions connecting. I think we're all very much look forward to the productive and successful session in the next 2 sessions going forward, and one that is really focused on technical discussions and substantive discussions on the issues. And let me close by expressing my sincere appreciation to all member states for your active participation, and particularly to the chair and to the co-leads for their leadership in this process, and very much looking forward to the discussion over the next 2 weeks.
Thank you. Now the committee will resume its consideration of Agenda Item 1, entitled Election of Officers. In accordance with General Assembly Resolution 79/235 of 24th of December 2024, the committee shall elect 18 vice chairs and the rapporteur elected on the basis of equitable geographical representation and taking into account gender balance. I have been advised that Ms. Marta Juanita of Colombia, Vice Chair from the group of Latin America and the Caribbean states has tendered her resignation. I have received the nomination of Ms. Claudia Lucia of Brazil for the position of Vice Chair. May I take it that the committee wishes to elect the nominee by acclamation as Vice Chair of the committee? I hear no objection. It is so decided. On behalf of the committee, I congratulate the Vice Chair. The committee has thus concluded this stage of its consideration of Agenda Item 1. The committee will resume its consideration of Agenda Item 3 entitled Organizational Matters. Members will recall that by its Decision 2 taken on 3rd of February 2025, the committee adopted the program of work for its sessions on the understanding that it might be revised during the sessions as needed. In this connection, the revised program of work is contained in document A/AC298/CRB14 Rev 1, which has been distributed to delegations via e-delegate and is available on the website of the committee. Members will also recall that by its Decision 3, taken on 6 February 2025, the committee decided to take decisions at the beginning of each of its sessions on any new applications by international organizations and on participation of representatives of other relevant non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, academia, institutions, and the private sector and other stakeholders. In this connection, the committee has before it draft decision A/AC298/CRB16 entitled Participation of International Organizations, Civil Society, and Other Relevant Stakeholders, and draft amendment A/AC298/CRB18. I now give the floor to the representative of Germany to introduce the draft amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished delegates, through document A/AC.298/CRP.15, the Secretariat provided information on new applications for accreditation from intergovernmental organizations, civil society organizations, academia institutions, private sector organizations, and other relevant stakeholders. The document indicates that objections were raised during the non-objection procedure in relation to 6 non-governmental organizations. In the draft decision of 31st July 2025, contained in document A/AC.298/CRP.16, these same 6 non-governmental organizations are not listed among the stakeholders proposed for admission. Based on the available documentation, it is not clear whether, and if so, how the respective objections were substantiated, nor is it apparent by whom the objections were raised. At the same time, the document CRP.15 states that valid applications were received from the 6 organizations in question. Against this background, the reasons for their exclusion remain unclear. Germany is committed to ensuring the inclusivity and transparency of the work of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee. In this context, Germany strongly supports inclusive and meaningful multi-stakeholder engagement. Guided by these considerations, Germany advocates for the extension of the list of admitted stakeholders to include the 6 non-governmental organizations concerned. The amendment submitted by Germany serves this very objective. Thank you very much.
I thank the representative of Germany, and now I give the floor to the Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. I'll address co-sponsorship of draft amendment CRP 18. If any countries not listed on CRP 18 wish to co-sponsor the draft amendment CRP 18, please press the microphone button now. I see Croatia, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Poland, New Zealand, Czechia, Portugal, Finland, Luxembourg, Denmark, Austria, Ireland, Malta, Slovenia, Switzerland, Italy, Belgium, Norway, France, Latvia, the United Arab Emirates, and Canada. If I have read out your name, to kindly unpress the microphone button. If I have not, it is quite a list, bear with me. I see the United Kingdom. If any other countries not read out wish to co-sponsor draft amendment CRP 18, please press the microphone button now. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank the Secretariat. Delegations wishing to make a statement in the explanation of vote before the vote on any or all of the proposals, including the draft decision and the draft amendment under this item, are invited to do so now in one intervention. After action on all of them, there will be an opportunity for explanation of vote after the vote on any or all of them. I remind delegations that statements in explanation of vote are limited to 5 minutes. Distinguished representative of Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Canada firmly believes that the meaningful inclusion of a broad range of stakeholders, including non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, academic institutions, and the private sector, in UN processes enhance the quality and legitimacy of outcomes. Restricting participation of individual organizations should be limited to exceptional cases and by decision by the entire membership. And based on the point put forward by Germany, unfortunately, we do not have the information at this point. The initial selection of organization by the Secretariat is based on an established procedure and has been done for many UN processes. This process deserves our trust and support. In this context, Canada is pleased to support the German amendment and encourage all states to support it, as well as we value civil society organization, academic institution, and private sector's voice in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished delegate of So we will now proceed to consider draft decision CRP 16 and the draft amendment CRP 18 before we take action on the draft decision in accordance with Rule 130 of the Rules of Procedures. The committee shall first take a decision on the draft amendment CRP 18. May I take it that the committee wishes to adopt draft amendment CRP 18? I hear no objection. It is so decided. Since the draft amendment is adopted, we shall proceed to take a decision on CRB 16 as amended. May I take it that the committee wishes to adopt a draft decision CRB 16 as amended? I hear no objection. It is so decided. Delegations wishing to make a statement in the explanation of vote after the vote or any or all of the proposals, including the draft decisions and the draft amendments, are invited to do so now in one intervention. I remind delegations that the statements in explanation of vote are limited to 5 minutes. Distinguished Delegate of Turkey.
Thank you, President. Turkey is a strong supporter of inclusive and constructive multilateralism. In this context, we attach importance to the meaningful participation of NGOs, civil society organizations, academic institutions, and the private sector in the work of the UN, in line with the principles and purposes of the UN Charter. Turkey supports only those NGOs whose work genuinely contributes to the constructive progress of the committee's mandate, advancing fair, inclusive, and effective international framework for tax cooperation. We are not supportive of those NGOs that are engaging in activities that run counter to the purposes and principles of the UN Charter and engage in politically motivated acts against some member states. Yet, the amendment proposed today, unfortunately, allows a group of member states to override valid objections without adequate understanding and scrutiny of those NGOs' activities, thereby transforming this matter into a potentially politicized one. As a matter of fact, the proponents of this amendment do not have detailed information on the objectives, activities, and financing of those NGOs that are objected by certain member states. Furthermore, no proper justification has been given on which grounds all those NGOs and stakeholders that are objected will be critical to the work of the Intergovernmental Negotiation Committee process. For the purposes of transparency, to ensure an informed decision-making, we would have preferred to be notified in detail on how those NGOs and stakeholders plan to meaningfully contribute to the work of the committee. In future, our modalities should be designed in a way that all member states are informed in advance properly of the intention of those NGOs that wish to participate to such technical meetings and on how these NGOs plan to contribute to the technical work at hand. This violation of non-objection principles has the potential to transform a technical and inclusive process into a politically charged one and may deter constructive engagement. We call for transparency and respect for the concerns of all member states when determining NGO participation and reiterate our support for applying either the criteria in ECOSOC Resolution 1996/31 or the non-objection principle as safeguards. Turkey remains committed to supporting the work of this committee and will continue to contribute constructively to this mandate. Thank you.
Thank you. So, the committee has just concluded this stage of its consideration of Agenda Item 3. The committee will resume its consideration of Agenda Item 4 entitled Framework Convention Protocol 1 on taxation of income derived from the provision of cross-border services in an increasingly digitalized and globalized economy, and the Protocol 2 on prevention and resolution of tax disputes. I now open the floor for general statements by delegations. Please press the microphone button if you wish to speak. Delegations wishing to speak on behalf of groups are requested to approach the Secretariat to be given priority. As announced in the journal, time limits are 4 minutes for statements on behalf of groups and 3 minutes for statements in national capacity. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Grace Wilkin, Attorney General and Minister of Justice and the Legal Affairs of St. Kitts and Nevis, speaking on behalf of CARICOM.
Thank you, Chair. Distinguished delegates, I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the 14 member states of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM. CARICOM warmly welcomes the establishment of the Intergovernmental Committee pursuant to General Assembly Resolution 79-235, which recognized the urgent need to develop a truly inclusive and effective framework for international tax cooperation. For too long, small island developing states and other developing countries have been marginalized in global tax governance, operating within systems that inadequately address our unique challenges and development needs. The current international tax architecture presents significant barriers to CARICOM member states in their pursuit of sustainable development, particularly in the taxation of cross-border services and the resolution of tax disputes. As highlighted in workstream discussions, many CARICOM countries depend on gross basis withholding taxes as a practical means of taxing non-resident service providers due to limited administrative capacities. However, this approach is often hindered by restrictive bilateral tax treaties that prevent the implementation of preferred taxation methods. As a result, our member states are subjected to an inequitable system in which complex transfer pricing rules, better suited to residence-based taxation models in developed economies, place undue strain on our already limited resources. This is why CARICOM believes the framework convention we craft must be anchored in the principle that efforts in international tax cooperation should be universal in approach and scope, and should fully take into account the different needs and capacities of all countries, as stated in the Addis Ababa Action Agenda on Financing for Development. For CARICOM, this means ensuring that the Framework Convention provides practical solutions to our revenue mobilization challenges, while respecting our sovereign right to design tax systems appropriate to our circumstances. The Framework Convention must facilitate, not hinder, our efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Distinguished Delegate of Ghana, on behalf of the African Group.
Thank you, Chair. I have the honor to speak on behalf of the African Group. Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, let me begin by extending our warmest congratulations to the newly elected member of the Bureau. We also take this opportunity to express our sincere gratitude to you, Chair, as well as the co-leads of the various work streams, all members of the Bureau, and the Secretariat for the exceptional work you have undertaken during the intersessional period. The Africa Group recognizes the significant effort invested in the preparation of the detailed issue notes and the thoughtful facilitation of consultations. We are also thankful for the insightful written contributions from member states, which form the foundation upon which our deliberations for this session will build. Chair, we gather here at a truly historic juncture, not only for the Global South, but for every nation that has long been denied an equitable seat at the international tax table. This is not just another meeting. It is the first time in history that the global community, under the auspices of the United Nations, is coming together to design a new international framework convention on tax cooperation, one that is inclusive, one that is just, and one that is driven by shared principles rather than power asymmetries. The recent announcement by the G7 to exempt some countries from their commitments under Pillar 2 serves as a powerful reminder of the broken nature of the current tax architecture. It highlights a truth many of us have long known, that the status quo is not only inadequate, it is unfair. The current system, driven by club-based arrangements, continues to marginalize the voices of the many in favor of the few. It is precisely because of such development that this United Nations Framework Convention must succeed. The African Group comes to this session with hope, determination, and a deep sense of responsibility. We are not here to replicate old structures or reinforce existing imbalances. We are here to co-create something new. a system that works for all, a framework that levels the playing field, a convention rooted in equity, transparency, and the sovereign right of every nation to raise revenue justly from the economic activity that occurs within its borders. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, allow me now to share some of the group's priorities across the various work streams. On work stream 1, the African group emphasizes the need to expand the commitments outlined in paragraph 10 of the terms of reference to include critical issues such as the taxation of income from natural resource extraction. Additionally, the group highlights the importance of prioritizing the development of the Convention's structural and governance elements, such as the Conference of the Parties, the Secretariat, and subsidiary bodies given their foundational role and the need for sufficient time to fully elaborate them. Regarding Workstream 2, the group emphasizes that the protocol should be future-proof by covering a wide range of services, including digital and emerging ones, uphold the principle of taxing where economic activity and value creation occur, follow simple and administrable rules, and include a multilateral solution to overcome limitations imposed by existing tax treaties. The Africa's group's position on Workstream 3 emphasizes the urgent need to address cross-border tax disputes in a globalized economy that often disadvantages countries with limited access to mechanisms like mutual agreement procedures and arbitration. The group calls for a fair, accessible, and balanced dispute resolution framework that avoids replicating inequities of investor-state arbitration. It supports optional mechanisms with strong safeguards and technical support, including joint audits, capacity-sensitive APAs, and regionally adaptable compliance models. Chair, distinguished delegates, before I conclude, allow me to raise a matter of institutional importance. It has now been 8 months since the adoption of Resolution 79/235, and yet the implementation of some of its core elements, particularly operational paragraph 12, relating to the provision of the necessary facilities and resources, including a technical secretariat to support the work of the committee, has proceeded at an unacceptably slow pace. The African group acknowledges the serious liquidity constraints currently confronting the United Nations. However, we must be clear. This process, the development of a United Nations Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation, must be treated as a priority. It is not simply a technical exercise. It is a transformative opportunity to correct systemic imbalances in the global tax system and to place the United Nations at the heart of a global economic governance, where it rightfully belongs. The credibility of this process depends on timely institutional support and adequate resourcing. We therefore urge the Secretariat and the wider United Nations system to take all necessary steps to accelerate implementation and ensure this effort receives the backing it deserves. We have before us a unique opportunity to craft a framework that will shape global tax cooperation for generations. And while the road ahead may not be easy, we are encouraged by the spirit of engagement, mutual respect, and shared purpose that this process has fostered so far. The Africa Group believes that this process belongs to all of us. It is inclusive, it is transparent, and it must remain grounded in the fundamental principle of equality among nations. We thank all delegations for their continued engagement, and we call on each and every one of you to bring your best ideas, your boldest thinking, and your deepest commitment to justice to the table. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Distinguished Delegate of Denmark on behalf of the European Union.
Thank you, Chair. Distinguished delegates, colleagues, I have the honor to speak on behalf of the 27 member states of the European Union. We, the member states of the European Union, are here to continue the negotiations on the future United Nations Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation and its 2 early protocols in a constructive and inclusive manner. For us, this process represents a good opportunity to consider current tax-related challenges and to contribute to enhanced tax cooperation at international level. We acknowledge the principles on which the future Framework Convention and its protocols are to be built. All tax policies should encompass general principles of equity, transparency, efficiency, legitimacy, and certainty, while recognizing that every member state has a sovereign right to decide on its tax rules. In this regard, our shared objective is to promote the stability and coherence of the international tax architecture. We are willing to engage in exploring ways to strengthen international tax cooperation frameworks for them to better reflect the diverse needs, priorities, and capabilities of all countries. Ahead of this session, a lot of work has already been conducted in 3 work streams, yet a lot of work remains to be done. We would like to thank you, Mr. Chair, for taking the leadership in this process. We would also like to express our gratitude to the co-leads of all 3 work streams. The discussions in each work stream have created a forum for sharing ideas and expertise, and at the same time, leaving room for expressing perspectives and concerns. Nonetheless, we consider that more in-depth analysis would have been necessary to enable the issue notes to provide a more balanced overview of the issues which are to be addressed in the Framework Convention and its 2 early protocols. In this way, more meaningful engagement could have been encouraged among the member states. That being said, we do highly commend all participating member states for their contributions and for advancing the work in a collaborative way. We also extend our appreciation to the Secretariat for its work in preparing the documents for these sessions. In this context, we would like to reiterate that timely and transparent preparation of documents play a crucial role in supporting a truly inclusive and effective process. It also helps improving the quality of our discussions, as it allows all parties to prepare and participate on an equal footing. Talking about participation, we are of the opinion that EU representatives should be allowed to participate in the informal meetings of the work streams. The rules and long-established practices of the UN General Assembly should be followed without exception. Inclusivity is at the core of this process, and we strongly believe that a more inclusive participation in the informal work streams could have a positive effect on the final output, building on a diverse range of expertise. As we move into the formal and detailed negotiations, we, the member states of the European Union, remain willing to engage in a pragmatic, inclusive, and forward-looking manner. In this spirit, we are ready to contribute constructively to the discussions. We believe that these sessions should be used to further analyze the identified issues, also considering economic evidence, and define areas of convergence to support the substantial development of the future Framework Convention and its 2 early protocols. As we have consistently underlined, our objective should be to reach agreement by consensus and to maximize synergies with existing international standards with a view to avoiding any duplication of work or efforts. In this regard, we will engage in working towards a framework convention which entails high-level commitments which are not self-executing, a first early protocol which relies on a thorough analysis and fully reflects the extended efforts already made in other international fora to address tax challenges arising from the digitalization of the economy, and a second early protocol which builds on the existing legal frameworks for dispute resolution and prevention. Mr. Chair, distinguished delegates, colleagues, we, the member states of the European Union, are looking forward to participating in these sessions and to working with you towards a successful and substantive outcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished Delegate of Brazil.
Mr. Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, Brazil is honored to address this first session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee on the UN Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation. This convention represents a historic opportunity to correct imbalances in global economic governance and ensure all countries shape international tax standards equally. A universal, inclusive, and development-oriented approach is essential. In our view, the Convention must support developing countries in tackling these urgent challenges: limited institutional capacity, inefficient and regressive tax systems, fiscal constraints, and persistent asymmetries that hinder growth and resource mobilization. These imbalances are evident in restrictions on source-based taxation, unbalanced distribution of taxing rights, and chronic revenue losses for net importers of capital, technology, and services. True international tax cooperation must advance fiscal justice and sovereignty. All countries should be able to tax economic activity within their markets or with a relevant nexus with their jurisdictions. The Convention must help modernize tax systems, enhance transparency, and ensure equitable allocation of taxing rights. Simplicity, effectiveness, and flexibility are critical. The Convention must deliver for all countries, not just in commitments, but in swift implementation, supporting capacity building in developing countries for domestic resource mobilization and expansion of fiscal space to finance the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly hunger and poverty eradication. Brazil endorses the principles of inclusiveness, progressiveness, and policy space as affirmed during our G20 presidency. These must guide efforts to build fairer, development-oriented tax systems that reduce inequality and drive economic transformation. We look forward to constructive negotiations committed to consensus-based outcomes that are sound, feasible, and responsive to the Global South. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished Delegate of Netherlands, followed by Liechtenstein.
Thank you, Chair. We align ourselves with the statement made by Denmark on behalf of the European Union member states, and in our national capacity, we wish to make the following additional remarks. The Kingdom of the Netherlands reiterates its full support for efforts aimed at promoting inclusive, effective, and fair international tax cooperation. We would also like to express our gratitude to you, Chair, and to the co-leads and to the Secretariat for their invaluable work in facilitating these discussions and preparing the issue notes. We also believe it is important to remember that this process consists of 3 distinct phases. First, this committee will decide on the drafting of the Framework Convention. Second, it is then every member state's own prerogative to sign on to the Convention. Third, and finally, while the commitment to the Convention is already a significant step, member states will also retain the freedom to decide whether to sign on to specific operative protocols under the Convention. A successful outcome will be achieved when both the Framework Convention and its protocols are drafted in a manner that garners the broadest possible support. Trying to find consensus is therefore in the primary interest of all of us. Allow me to reassure you the Kingdom of the Netherlands' active and constructive participation throughout this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished Delegate of Liechtenstein, followed by India.
Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. Liechtenstein thanks the Secretariat and the co-leads for their work over the past few months. We appreciate the constructive dialogue among the member states and the input from various stakeholders, as well as the opportunity to contribute further to the development of the Framework Convention and its protocols. As this work progresses, it is important that the Convention, to serve as a framework, remains broad and flexible in its design to ensure the widest possible acceptance and to remain future-proof. We believe it is essential to keep the commitments stated in the Convention at a high level and not self-executing, while leaving the scope and technical details to the respective protocols. This issue was discussed during the development of the terms of reference, and we believe it remains key to securing the participation of as many jurisdictions as possible. Additionally, we would like to draw attention to the fact that overly strong and detailed commitments in the Framework Convention could undermine the optionality of the protocols. Commitments should not go beyond what is outlined in the terms of reference, and it is worth recalling that even those commitments have raised concerns regarding optionality. In our view, the Framework Convention should function as an overarching framework with further obligations to be developed and agreed upon through separate protocols. Furthermore, we believe that a more comprehensive scoping exercise could help to more specifically identify areas where the Framework Convention provides added value and avoid unnecessary overlap with existing standards and work carried out in other international forums. We see merit in conducting a more thorough analysis of the current landscape, including the existing needs and economic impact of the envisaged measures. Regarding the protocols, particularly the first protocol, it would be useful to consider existing work to a larger extent. Thank you for taking our considerations into account for the upcoming work, and we look forward to constructive discussions during this session. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished delegate of India, followed by Algeria.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, we have indeed come a long way since the adoption of Resolution 78-230, which set us on this path towards seeking an equitable solution to the challenges of international tax cooperation. From that moment on, we embarked on a journey that required resolve, mutual trust, and a shared vision. Over the past several months, we have engaged fruitfully in developing the terms of reference and advancing the work of the Intergovernmental Committee now. More recently, we have witnessed constructive discussions on the development of the Framework Convention and the early protocols through the work streams. These efforts have shown that when guided by collective purpose, progress is not only possible, it is inevitable. This is demonstrated by the progress and the work done in the 3 work streams in a very short period of time. Today, as we gather for this first substantive session, we must reaffirm our commitment to ensuring that the objectives and principles we have endorsed begin to take shape in a way that reflects our voice, our aspirations, and our common understanding of fairness. When we began this journey, there were understandable doubts about whether consensus on such a complex subject could be achieved. Taxation is inherently challenging, and the diversity of our perspectives, sometimes divergent, makes agreement a formidable prospect. Yet, we have demonstrated that it is possible to build consensus and agreement on issues of real significance. This achievement stands as a testament to the spirit of cooperation that has united us. India believes that our foremost objective must be to establish a framework convention of the highest quality. Its strength and credibility will bind member states to its provisions in both letter and spirit. The commitments we enshrine must provide clarity and direction, not only to the early protocols, but also to those that we will negotiate in the future. We also believe that the commitments should move beyond the broad formulations of the terms of reference, striking a balance between remaining high level and offering enough detail to guide meaningful implementation. As we proceed, it is vital that we agree on the form and process that will sustain the transparency and trust that we have built. India assures all member states that we will engage constructively and contribute our technical expertise and every effort necessary to build a framework that benefits our governments, our citizens, and our businesses alike. Let us remain guided by the conviction that an equitable international tax system is essential for sustainable development and a fairer global economy. Together, we will surely achieve this goal. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate of Algeria, followed by Italy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, distinguished delegates, I wish to extend my sincere appreciation to the Chair, the members of the Bureau, and the Secretariat for their continued commitment and the quality of the work accomplished. Algeria aligns itself with the statement delivered by the African Group and would like to add the following in its national capacity. Mr. Chair, Algeria expressed its support and commitment to the work of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Group on the United Nations Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation and its two protocols, which constitute an important step towards reshaping the architecture of the international tax system to make it more inclusive, fair, transparent, efficient, equitable, and truly contributing to sustainable development. While respecting the sovereignty of member states and taking into account the needs and priorities of developing countries, the system will be able to increase the legitimacy, legal certainty, and fairness of international tax rules, and will strengthen the fight against tax fraud and evasion and illicit financial flows. We also applaud the methodical approach that made it possible to identify priority thematic areas to address them within 3 work streams and to produce high-quality thematics notes which faithfully reflect the in-depth discussions held within these work streams and which also constitute a valuable basis for guiding our debates, promoting a common understanding of the challenges ahead and progressing towards concrete and balanced results. Algeria subscribes to the positions expressed by the African Group, particularly in regard to the need to formulate commitment in sufficiently large scope to allow for a certainty, flexibility, and adaptability to future circumstances. Cross-border services play nowadays a very important role in the economy. We underscore the importance of ensuring a fairer distribution of taxing rights between the state of source and residence. In this context, the Framework Convention and its protocols must take into account the difficulties encountered by states and provide effective, simple, and quick implementation mechanisms in order to correct the imbalances currently found in existing bilateral tax treaties. Therefore, the adoption of simple and effective rules that allow for a fair distribution of taxing rights is necessary in order to enable source countries as well as countries of residence to guarantee a broader tax coverage adapted to the diversity of economic models. This new approach will reconcile the requirement of tax justice, administrative efficiency, and international coherence, while protecting the legitimate right of market jurisdictions in a rapidly expanding digital environment. Furthermore, and taking into account the increasing global economic exchanges which give a rise to international tax dispute, Algeria supports that the UN Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation should prioritize dispute prevention through clearer rules, tax cooperation, and transparent multilateral dialogue, while emphasizing the importance of administrative assistance. We also wish to emphasize that capacity building remains a priority, particularly for developing countries to participate fully in international tax cooperation and effectively implement the Framework Convention and its protocols. To conclude, Algeria remains fully committed to constructively contribute to the effort undertaken to develop the Framework Convention and its two protocols. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished Delegate of Italy, followed by Kenya, then Russia.
Thank you, Chair. Italy aligns with the statement delivered by EU Danish presidency on behalf of the 27 EU member states and would like to add the following remarks on national capacity. We would like to express full appreciation for the work done by the Chair, the Secretariat, and the co-leads of the 3 work streams. Italy recognizes that the UN Framework Convention represents an important opportunity to contribute to establish an inclusive and effective international tax cooperation framework. In that respect, we would like to reiterate our request to build on existing achievement in the area of international tax cooperation and taking into account the previous works when exploring technical solutions, in particular with the protocols. This approach would maximize the efficiency of our negotiations and pave the way for more robust and stable outcomes. Being aware that participating countries might have different priorities, Italy would like to underline that any durable outcome would only be reached to the extent it is successfully implemented by a broad range of countries. In this perspective, despite the hybrid decision-making rule defined in February, Italy would like to stress again that it is essential to work with the aim to reach consensual solutions. Otherwise, the outcome of the negotiations may face significant challenges in gaining widespread implementation. With a view to set a new forward-looking international tax convention, the Intergovernmental Negotiating Commitment should ensure that the new legal instruments are well anchored in principles. Stability, administrability, and certainty would be the basis of the Framework Convention and its protocol. With regard to the Framework Convention, principles should be translated into high-level commitment, so to design an overarching legal architecture to be further developed and implemented through the different protocols. In our opinion, the protocols also need to be rooted in well-established and shared principles. The negotiation to develop the legal instrument should be grounded in analysis with the aim to evaluate their benefits for investment, trade, and growth. Moreover, any technical solution should not dismiss the taxpayers' rights. The Framework Convention and the protocols can contribute to enhance domestic resource mobilization, which is essential to support the sustainable development. However, we are strongly convinced that the improvement of domestic resource mobilization can only be achieved through legal instruments, but it requires also other means, including mechanisms that strengthen capacity building. As we move towards this week of negotiations, Italy remains constructively engaged in good faith negotiation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, distinguished delegate of Kenya, followed by Russia, then Spain.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, at the onset, Kenya aligns itself with a statement made by Ghana on behalf of the Africa Group and wishes to make the following statement in its national capacity. Mr. Chair, Kenya approaches this first session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee with a deep sense of responsibility and optimism. This process represents the first truly inclusive effort under the auspices of the United Nations to design a global framework for international tax cooperation. It offers a historic opportunity to address long-standing inequities in the current tax architecture and to ensure that the voices of developing countries are fully reflected in the outcome. Mr. Chair, the current international tax system remains characterized by fragmented arrangements that often leave developing countries on the margins of decision-making. These imbalances have significant implications for our ability to mobilize domestic resources, finance sustainable development, and respond effectively to global challenges. A multilateral framework anchored in the UN is therefore essential to achieving fairness, predictability, and legitimacy in global tax cooperation. Mr. Chair, Kenya's priorities for this session are threefold. First, we underscore the need for the Framework Convention to enshrine equity as a guiding principle. This includes a fair allocation of taxing rights, recognition of the diverse capacities of member states, and provisions that enable countries to benefit from economic activity occurring within their borders. Second, we support the early establishment of clear institutional arrangements, including a conference of the parties, secretariat, and subsidiary bodies, to ensure that the convention can function effectively from the outset. These structures must reflect equitable geographical representation and be adequately resourced. Third, on the substantive commitments, Kenya calls for comprehensive coverage of key issues such as digital and emerging services, taxation of natural resources, and robust mechanisms for the prevention and resolution of tax disputes. Such mechanisms must be fair, accessible to all member states, and avoid replicating inequities found in existing dispute resolution systems. Mr. Chair, Kenya remains mindful of the financial and procedural challenges confronting this process, including the need for timely technical support and adequate resources. We urge the Secretariat and Member States to prioritize the implementation of Resolution 79235 to maintain momentum and credibility. In conclusion, Kenya stands ready to engage constructively with all delegations in the spirit of transparency and inclusivity. We are committed to contributing to an outcome that reflects the aspirations of all member states and lays the foundations for a just and development-oriented global tax framework. I thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished delegate of Russia, followed by Spain, then Korea.
Уважаемый господин председатель, приветствуем всех участников первой сессии переговорного комитета. Выражаем признательность секретариату и членам рабочих групп за проделанную работу по подготовке позиционных бумаг к настоящей сессии. На этой неделе комитету предстоит обсудить позиционную бумагу по вопросам разработки рамочной конвенции. Российская Федерация рассматривает конвенцию в качестве основополагающего глобального инструмента, необходимого для утверждения принципов, на которых будет строиться международное налоговое сотрудничество в интересах всех государств. Мы считаем, что обязательства по конвенции должны быть сформулированы как можно более широко, чтобы в максимальном объеме покрывать поставленные цели и задачи по созданию системы управления в области международного налогового сотрудничества, которая будет способна отвечать на существующие и будущие вызовы в налоговой сфере. Конвенция станет основой для разработки двух ранних протоколов, так и всех последующих. В этой связи, учитывая опциональный характер протоколов, мы призываем к разработке обязательств Конвенции в таком виде, чтобы они устанавливали основополагающие принципы и подходы к решению вопросов, представляя собой самостоятельные правила вне зависимости от протоколов. Считаем важным стремиться к созданию такого глобального инструмента, который бы имел практическую значимость для решения существующих налоговых проблем, а не имел чисто декларативный характер. Одновременно уверены, что эффективная реализация положений будущей конвенции невозможна без обеспечения прозрачности, которая может быть достигнута посредством осуществления эффективного обмена информацией. В связи с этим предлагаем включить в обязательства по конвенции положения, касающиеся обмена информацией. В заключение хотели бы отметить, что Россия принимает активное участие во всех направлениях работы комитета. Убеждены, что конвенция и два ранних протокола к ней будут способствовать повышению определенности в налоговой сфере, защите и росту национальной налоговой базы. В свою очередь, дополнительные налоговые поступления позволят развивающимся странам нарастить инвестиции в устойчивое развитие и сократить зависимость от внешних источников финансирования. Призываем всех объединить усилия для построения справедливой и эффективной международной налоговой системы, отвечающей вызовам 21 века. Большое спасибо.
Thank you. Distinguished delegate of Spain, followed by Korea and Hungary.
Estimado presidente, distinguidos delegados, es un honor dirigirme a ustedes en representación de la delegación española. Nos adherimos a la declaración realizada por Dinamarca en representación de todos los Estados miembros de la Unión Europea. Consideramos que este proceso ofrece una excelente oportunidad para reflexionar sobre los desafíos fiscales actuales y contribuir al fortalecimiento de la cooperación internacional en esta materia. Entendemos que toda política fiscal debe basarse en los valores de equidad, transparencia, eficiencia, legitimidad y seguridad jurídica, sin olvidar el principio de soberanía fiscal que cada Estado conserva. Compartimos el objetivo de fomentar la estabilidad y coherencia del marco fiscal internacional de manera que se reflejen mejor las distintas necesidades, prioridades y capacidades de todos los países. Y queremos agradecerle, señor presidente, así como a los colíderes de los tres grupos de trabajo, por su labor y dedicación durante este tiempo. Valoramos altamente también las contribuciones de todos los países implicados y reconocemos el progreso logrado de forma colaborativa. Agradecemos igualmente a la Secretaría por la preparación de los documentos de trabajo, reiterando que una elaboración oportuna y transparente de dichos documentos es esencial para garantizar un proceso verdaderamente inclusivo y eficaz. Reafirmamos nuestra disposición a colaborar con un espíritu pragmático, inclusivo y orientado al futuro. Estamos listos para contribuir de manera constructiva a los debates y, como hemos sostenido desde el principio, nuestro objetivo es alcanzar acuerdos por consenso, alineados con los estándares internacionales ya existentes, evitando así duplicidades innecesarias. En este marco, trabajaremos por una convención marco que contenga compromisos generales y no vinculantes por sí mismos, un primer protocolo basado en un análisis riguroso y que refleje plenamente los avances realizados en foros internacionales respecto a los desafíos fiscales de la economía digital, un segundo protocolo que aproveche los marcos jurídicos existentes en materia de resolución y prevención de disputas. Apoyamos asimismo el compromiso de alinear la cooperación fiscal internacional con el desarrollo sostenible, teniendo en cuenta lo acordado por consenso en el compromiso de Sevilla hace unos días, en cuanto a tributación progresiva para reducir desigualdades, incluyendo la tributación efectiva de individuos de alta riqueza neta, el medio ambiente y en relación con el género y los derechos humanos. En definitiva, esperamos con interés participar activamente en estas sesiones y colaborar con ustedes para lograr un resultado de éxito. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Distinguished delegate of Korea, followed by Hungary and Indonesia.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to express my appreciation to all member states and the Secretariat for their work in support of the discussion on the Framework Convention and the two protocols. I especially value the efforts made to reconcile diverse views and deliver meaningful outcomes despite the tight schedule. I believe that this collective effort will serve as an important foundation for advancing the future framework of international tax cooperation. Before we proceed, I would like to highlight three key points. First, with respect to the fair allocation of taxing rights, I recognize the limitations of existing tax rules, which are based on fiscal presence and the need for new rules in light of the changing business models brought by the digital economy. However, given the complexity of setting standards for allocating taxing rights and the lack of the agreement among jurisdictions on how fairness should be defined, I consider it appropriate that the relevant provisions in the Framework Convention be drafted at a high level. Second, regarding the effective prevention and resolution of tax disputes, I recognize the importance of this issue, given its role in ensuring the elimination of double taxation for taxpayers and in improving administrative efficiency and the effective use of resources for tax administrations. That said, I believe that the Framework Convention should focus on setting out the overall objectives and directions for tax dispute resolution, while the detailed procedures and mechanisms would be most effectively addressed within the protocols. Third, concerning the sustainable development, I recognize the importance of achieving balanced social, economic, and environmental progress. Having that said, I believe it is important to more clearly highlight why this topic should be addressed within the framework of international tax discussions and to better articulate the rationale for cooperation among jurisdictions in this context. In addition, for the commitment not addressed during this session, I believe it is important to ensure broad consultation with member states and to build common agreement under the shared objective of promoting inclusive and effective international tax cooperation. In closing, I hope that discussions ahead will produce constructive outcomes grounded in mutual trust and cooperation among member states. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished delegate of Hungary, followed by Indonesia and China.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dear Chair, distinguished delegates and colleagues, Hungary fully aligns with and supports the statement delivered by the Danish delegation on behalf of the 27 member states of the European Union. We would like to add in our national capacity the followings. Hungary underscores the importance of inclusive, effective, and fair international tax cooperation. Hungary also affirms the core principles of equity, transparency and efficiency, legitimacy and certainty in tax policy, while fully recognizing the sovereign right of all states to determine their own tax systems. In this spirit, we remain actively engaged in the negotiations and the future United Nations Framework Convention and the two early protocols. Hungary appreciates that the United Nations Framework Convention provides a valuable forum for global dialogue, and we support the exploration of opportunities to create policy synergies wherever possible, while we acknowledge the diverse needs, priorities, and resources of all countries. At the same time, we empathize the importance of avoiding duplication of work. It is essential that the United Nations Framework Convention complements rather than undermines existing international instruments. Significant work has been undertaken and notable achievements were made in other international fora, which should be duly taken into account. The work on the United Nations Framework Convention should also seek to reach agreement by consensus in line with established practices in other international fora. Regarding the conduct of technical work, we highlight the need for in-depth technical analysis and impact assessment also of all proposals. Clear and transparent procedural guidelines, timely scheduling of meetings, and the prompt preparation and distribution of documents are all critical for enhancing the efficiency of the negotiations and both during and between the sessions, and also to foster the development of high quality and long-term solutions. With this in mind, we really appreciate the preparatory efforts of the Chair and the Secretariat for this session, and we look forward to continuing our constructive engagement towards a successful outcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Distinguished Delegate of Indonesia, followed by China and United Arab Emirates.
Thank you, Chair. Indonesia welcomes this substantive session as a pivotal step toward building a just and inclusive international tax system. In a global economy increasingly shaped by digitalization and globalization, developing countries risk further being left behind, not only in innovation but in taxation. More and more economic value is now created and consumed remotely through digital platforms, automated services, and user participation across borders. Yet, existing provisions remain greatly anchored in physical presence, leaving jurisdictions, especially in the Global South, without a fair share of taxing rights. This is a serious wake-up call that, if unaddressed, the erosion of source-based taxation will widen inequality, weaken countries' capacity, and constrain fiscal space for sustainable development. In this connection, we wish to reaffirm that the establishment of the Framework Convention shall set high-level principles and safeguards while placing technical details in protocols to allow flexibility, adaptability, and phased implementation. The Convention and its protocols must ensure countries, particularly the developing ones, can tax income from digital markets and services regardless of physical presence. Against this backdrop, allow us to highlight three key issues for us to move forward. First, capacity and fairness. We must address asymmetries between tax administrations. Let's equip countries with tools, not just rules, which consequently urges robust technical assistance, capacity building, and dispute management training. We also share the importance of critically reassess the idea of the use of mandatory binding arbitration in tax cases. Such clauses warrant heightened caution, given capacity gaps, costs, and sovereignty concerns. Second, sovereignty. Multilateral commitments must protect, not shrink, domestic policy space. The Convention should not intrude into purely domestic tax disputes. Jurisdictions must also be able to tailor administration to local realities while adhering to agreed minimums. Market jurisdictions must retain rights to tax income tied to real economic activities, including significant economic presence without physical operations. Value creation should guide, but not solely determine, taxing rights. Demand-side contributions matter. Third, equity and inclusivity. Equal participation is essential. The system must address, not entrench, existing asymmetries. Key guiding principles are critical, including efficiency, neutrality, simplicity, and administrability to reduce disputes, compliance burdens, and opportunities for base erosion and profit shifting. This work should align with the SDGs by safeguarding revenues, reducing inequality, and strengthening state capacity. In closing, the Framework Convention should halt the erosion of source-based taxation, reflect modern business realities, and equip countries to collect what is rightfully theirs. Let us build a system that is fair, future-ready, and founded on trust. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished delegate of China, followed by United Arab Emirates and Turkey.
Thank you, Chair. First, I would like to thank Mr. Chair and the Secretary for the great efforts and leadership during the process and the participation and efforts from other member states as well. And I will present our general statement in Chinese, so please put on the earphone. 尊敬的主席，各位代表，我们一直支持联合国在国际税收规则制定和国际税收协调中发挥积极作用。我们欢迎和支持联合国为推动包容和有效的国际税务合作所做出的努力。在前期公约谈判中，各成员国确定了目前的优先事项，包括跨境服务所得征税、税收争议预防和解决等。我们认为，各方应致力于形成包容和平衡的全球性公约。在当前议题谈判和未来议题讨论中，应充分考虑不同发展阶段国家的立场，经各方充分讨论和广泛协商，最大限度弥合差异。我们支持政府间谈判委员会设立的3个工作组，并积极参与关于框架公约和2个早期议定书的起草工作。我们赞赏各工作组的努力和取得的工作进展，并将积极做出应有贡献。我们希望政府间谈判委员会和各工作组加强统筹协调，科学规划会议数量和频率，提高谈判效率。关于公约，我们认为，框架公约内容应以高层级、宏观的原则性表述为主，具体权利性义务的实体性内容应由议定书明确。公约可遵循渐进推动国际税收规则调整优化，不应过于激进改变甚至颠覆现有的国际税收规则体系。目前，议题文件以高层级原则性表述概括了现阶段各方对公约几点承诺的共识，客观反映了第一工作组的讨论成果。下一步，我们将继续积极参与框架公约和2个议定书的谈判制定工作。我们期待与各方一道努力推动包容和有效的国际税务合作。谢谢。
Thank you. Distinguished delegate of United Arab Emirates, followed by Turkey and Cameroon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We would like to express our deep appreciation to the Chair and Secretariat for their commitment and dedication in developing the United Nations Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation. We agree with many in this room that the current international tax architecture has challenges and gaps that have contributed to global inequitable growth. We therefore recognize the critical importance of this initiative in enhancing inclusive global tax cooperation and promoting a fair and equitable global tax system. The proposed framework has the potential to address significant challenges in international taxation and foster greater collaboration among nations.
The UAE continues to actively engage on a constructive basis in all 3 UN work streams and will continue to use its role as a Bureau member in promoting the design of sustainable tax policies that promote equitable economic growth in areas of international taxation where gaps currently exist. With respect to the Framework Convention itself, while we strongly support the overall project objectives, we believe the commitments of the Convention should be kept at a high level and the active consultation with all stakeholders is undertaken throughout all stages of the Convention. This ensures that the Convention remains simple and can be signed by the broadest majority of jurisdictions. We would suggest that the commitments could make reference to the topics that would be covered in the protocols, and given the technical nature of international tax, that any scoping or technical aspects are left to the protocol themselves to address. We look forward to further discussions and refinements of this important initiative to address our concerns and strengthen international tax cooperation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, distinguished delegate of Turkey, followed by Cameroon and Ghana.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies and distinguished delegates, Turkey expresses appreciation to Workstream's co-lead, Secretariat, and members for all the efforts in advancing the work and confirms its commitment to participate constructively in the discussions. Multilateralism and international cooperation are key instruments to addressing global challenges. In this perspective, Turkey recognized the opportunity to continue the discussion on how to further promote inclusive and effective international tax cooperation. Turkey reaffirms that national sovereignty should be respected and each country should have the right to choose their own tax policies according to their circumstances. Hence, Turkey fully supports optionality with respect to mechanisms within the protocols rather than binding obligations, which will provide flexibility for countries with diverse legal systems and policy preferences and promote broader participation to the protocols. Turkey's view regarding the Framework Convention is that Convention should be designed by using broad language without detail. Detailed and substantive provisions specifying rights and non-binding obligations should be defined in relevant protocols. International tax works already undertaken in other relevant forums, existing tools, strengths, and expertise as stated in the terms of reference should be considered to ensure a synergetic approach to global tax challenges. It is also essential that the complementarity should be a guiding principle and protocols does not conflict with existing mechanisms under bilateral treaties and internationally recognized principles. Turkey will continue to engage in the discussions openly and constructively to find a common way forward at the global level. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Delegate of Cameroon, followed by Ghana and Norway.
Dear Chair, Vice Chairs, distinguished delegates, colleagues, Cameroon is honored to take the floor at this crucial moment, one that offers the world a chance to correct long-standing imbalances in the global tax system. At the outset, I would like to extend my deep appreciation to you, Mr. Chair, for your continued leadership in guiding the work of this committee, as well as my gratitude to the Bureau members, the Secretariat of the UN, and to all delegations whose relentless work has made this process possible. Cameroon aligns itself with the statement delivered on behalf of the African Group, while adding the following comments in its national capacity. Mr. Chair, this is not merely a negotiation for Cameroon and for many nations in the global South. It is a matter of urgent economic necessity and national sovereignty. For too long, the global tax system has been failing to reflect the unique challenges and priorities of developing countries like ours. The absence of a strong, unified framework costs our nation vital resources that are essential for funding our schools, our hospitals, and infrastructure. Cameroon's prosperity and our ability to achieve sustainability and sustainable development goals is directly tied to the success of this convention. We need a framework that corrects these imbalances and provides a clear, efficient path to a fairer distribution of tax revenues. Therefore, we stand in support of a framework convention on international tax cooperation, and we call for a rapid conclusion of these negotiations. The urgency of this task cannot be overstated. Each day of delay means further erosion of our tax basis and a continued drain of our national treasuries. The time for a new convention is now. Mr. Chair, the effectiveness of this convention will be measured by how boldly and quickly we address the inequalities that undermine sustainable development. The convention must not only be a tool for transformation in theory, but must be a practical instrument that offers tangible benefits. For Cameroon, this means a framework that recognizes our diverse tax systems while providing immediate commitment to capacity building, technical support, and truly equitable representation in all governance structures. Mr. Chair, let us choose cooperation over competition, fairness over unilateralism, and equity over exclusion. Let's make every voice matter, and let's act with the speed and purpose that this historic moment demands. Cameroon stands ready to work with all member states to create a convention that is not only coherent and transparent, but one that strengthens global tax governance, closes loopholes, and most importantly, channels resources towards the development goals that we all share. In this vein, Cameroon ratifies its active contribution and unwavering commitment to the principles of equity, inclusivity, transparency, and efficiency. Together, let us deliver a convention that will echo as a victory for fairness, solidarity, and most critically, for the sustainable and urgent development of our nations across the globe. Let history remember that in this room, we did not settle for status quo. We changed the course together. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm giving the floor to the distinguished representative of Ghana to continue his previous statement, followed by Norway and Switzerland.
Mr. Chair, excuse me. Mr. Chair, distinguished excellencies and distinguished delegates, to begin, Ghana aligns herself with the statement delivered on behalf of the Africa Group. And in making our national statement, we begin by extending warm congratulations to the newly elected members of the Bureau. We further wish to express sincere appreciation to you, Mr. Chair, to the co-leads of the various work streams, and to all members of the Bureau for the clarity, commitment, and collegiality that have marked the intersessional discussions. We further commend the Secretariat for the technical rigor and dedication with which they have supported the work. The documents and analysis provided have been instrumental in shaping the substance of the deliberations. Excellencies and distinguished delegates, this is a defining moment for the Global South and for every member state that has felt sidelined, unheard, or constrained by a global tax system built in a different era by a different set of voices. The establishment of this Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee signals a unique opportunity for truly universal cooperation in international tax matters, where all nations, regardless of size or economic power, can contribute equally to shaping the rules that govern us all. Just weeks ago, we witnessed an announcement by the G7 leaders to exempt certain countries from Pillar 2 commitments. That decision, made outside any inclusive multilateral framework, serves as a stark reminder and cements our assertion that the current global tax architecture is not only fragmented, it is virtually defunct. It privileges the few, disenfranchises the many, and perpetuates asymmetries that undermine trust in the international tax system. This is precisely why the development of a UN Framework Convention is not just timely, it is necessary. It is our collective response to a system that has for far too long failed to meet the standards of fairness, transparency, and equity. Mr. Chair, Ghana fully aligns itself with the priorities outlined by the chair of the Africa Group, and we commend the clarity and ambition embedded in the group's positions. We will offer further elaboration on national capacity during the substantive discussions. We commend the spirit of cooperation shown by all delegations thus far. Yet, we must also express our concern. To date, no delegation from the Global North has volunteered to co-lead work streams 1 and 2. We respectively call on our colleagues from all regions to step forward and co-lead. This process was built on the principles of inclusivity, transparency, and shared ownership. It is in that same spirit that we must proceed. Before concluding, allow us to echo a point raised by the chair of the Africa Group. It has now been 8 months since the adoption of Resolution 79235, and yet progress on critical implementation tasks, most notably the recruitment of tax experts to support the Secretary, remains painfully slow. We recognize the fiscal constraints facing the United Nations. Nevertheless, this process must be prioritized. Your Excellencies and distinguished delegates, this convention is not merely about raising tax revenue. It is about fairness, justice, and global economic sovereignty. It is about restoring trust in multilateralism and empowering nations to reclaim the revenues needed to fund their development, including the provision of basic education and healthcare. Ghana stands ready to work with all delegations to deliver a convention that is bold in vision, fair in substance, and transformative in impact. A convention we can all own. Mr. Chairman, I want to re-echo our earlier sentiments that posterity is watching us and will not forgive us if we do not work together to develop an international tax order that meets the needs of all. So let us walk forward together with resolve, with purpose, and with the conviction that this process, if done right, can help bend the arc of global economic governance towards justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished delegate of Norway, followed by Switzerland and Tanzania.
Thank you, Chair, and warmly welcome back to Turtle Bay. Distinguished colleagues and friends, Norway is committed to advancing global tax cooperation and values the UN's role in ensuring inclusive discussions on these matters. A fair, transparent, and effective international tax system is critical for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. All countries, regardless of income level, must be able to mobilize domestic resources to reduce inequality and promote sustainable growth. Tackling tax evasion and avoidance, which disproportionately affect developing countries, requires strong political will and constructive engagement from all stakeholders. We should leverage the UN's convening power to forge widely supported and effective solutions. In doing so, we can raise global ambition on tax, strengthen capacity building, and ensure inclusive representation. Chair, this first substantial session is a key opportunity to advance discussions and lay a strong foundation for the negotiations ahead. Norway sees the Framework Convention as a chance to reinforce multilateralism in tax governance. It should build on existing efforts while ensuring the voices of all are fully reflected. Inclusive cooperation means engaging all relevant actors, civil society, the private sector, academia, and the media. Their perspectives will strengthen our deliberations and outcomes. Norway also emphasizes the importance of complementarity with existing mechanisms such as the OECD, the Inclusive Framework, and the Global Forum. We remain firmly committed to these forums and their processes. Enhancing coordination across forums and avoiding fragmentation will improve the coherence and impact of our collective efforts. Chair, we welcome the work that has been carried out under the 3 work streams established by the Convention process, namely the Framework Convention, the Protocol on the Taxation of Services, and the Protocol on Dispute Prevention and Resolution. This work is essential in guiding our discussions, and we welcome delegations' active and constructive engagement. To effectively guide the process ahead and ensure the broadest possible participation, our further deliberations should be grounded in a robust analytical framework. We look forward to the negotiations ahead and to working with all delegations to build a robust and effective framework that benefits all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Distinguished Delegate of Switzerland, followed by Tanzania.
Thank you. Chairman, dear colleagues, the past years of tax work at the United Nations have been an intense journey. We regret some decisions taken on the way, in particular the departure from the search for consensual solutions and from the avoidance of duplication. These may impact the acceptance of the deliverables of this committee, and we must recall that truly effective outcomes will ultimately still require a critical mass of support. Nevertheless, we remain committed to the goals of inclusiveness and effectiveness of international cooperation in tax matters, and we look forward to contributing to the work of this committee. One of our goals for the upcoming sessions is to develop a common understanding of the international taxation of income from services. Such an approach should be based on consistent principles and should require a more substantial nexus than the mere fact of a payment source in a country. The result would otherwise be a form of a tariff of the source country. And although tariffs are currently having a revival, the opinion of academia is clear and is underlined in practice by the reactions of financial markets. Trade barriers ultimately harm all parties involved. Another of our goals is to find a solution that does not discriminate non-residents when rendering services. Non-discrimination is a long-standing principle of international tax cooperation and is required for business profits by both the UN and the OECD Model Tax Convention. To comply with this obligation, the tax on non-resident service providers should not be higher than the tax on domestic service providers, what raises the question of the appropriate rate or base of the tax. Finally, our aim is to identify options for further work to strengthen dispute resolution. The mandate to develop an early protocol regarding dispute prevention and resolution implies operational changes to the current system. A party that intends to uphold its contractual commitments should not be afraid of having its interpretation of those commitments assessed by an impartial third party. Our hope is therefore to find modalities under which countries could trust a third party and would accept their findings in unresolved disputes. We look forward to productive discussions with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished Delegate of Tanzania, followed by Republic of Iran and Chile.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the United Republic of Tanzania fully aligns with the statement made by Ghana on behalf of the African Group. Mr. Chair, now I would like to make the following remarks in our national capacity. First, Mr. Chair, Tanzania firmly supports what was acknowledged in Resolution 78/230 that all taxpayers should pay taxes where economic activity takes place. where value is created and where revenues are generated. For countries like Tanzania, this principle is not just fair, it is vital. It allows us to meaningfully tax cross-border economic activities that are clearly benefiting from our markets. Second, Mr. Chair, we believe the Framework Convention must be a tool for global fiscal equity, broad-based and inclusive, attached in the goals of SDGs. Tax rules must be reflecting the realities of current and future economies, and they must work equally for all forms and types of businesses. Third, Mr. Chair, we cannot state the importance of a fair allocation of taxing rights. For us, this is not only about fairness, it is about ensuring we can raise the domestic revenue needed to meet our development goals and provide opportunities for our people. Fourth, Mr. Chair, this convention must respond to the urgent need to modernize outdated international tax rules. The global economy has changed, Mr. Chair. Our tax frameworks must keep pace. Finally, our governance matters. Mr. Chair, for this convention to succeed, its governance structures must be inclusive. Every country must have an equal seat at the table. We must not replicate the imbalances. We're all working to fix it. Mr. Chair, we look forward to working with all delegations to build a convention that is fair, future-ready, and truly global. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Distinguished Delegate of Iran, followed by Chile and the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, let me join others and thank you, the members of the Bureau and the Secretariat, for all works and support. Mr. Chairman, establishing a new international tax framework is a critical process to address the imbalances and inequalities that exist among us. It is imperative that the new framework upholding multilateralism and is built based on the principle of equity, inclusivity, fairness, and respecting sovereignty of a state, with the specific focus on the needs and interests of developing countries, including those under unilateral coercive measures. Mr. Chairman, developing countries have historically been left behind in the global tax system, excluded from key decision-making forums and subjected to rules that do not align with their economic realities. This has resulted in significant revenue losses and inequality. Allow me to highlight 4 points. First, the new framework must prioritize a new universal and inclusive platform for tax cooperation, in which United Nations has its own central role, where all countries have an equal voices and a genuine role in shaping their rules. The new framework must address the unique challenges of countries under unilateral coercive measures. And 3, the new framework must provide robust capacity building and technical assistance for developing countries, and must establish a fair and impartial system for resolving tax disputes between countries. That is one that is acceptable to all countries regardless of their size or economic power. In closing, Mr. Chair, we need an inclusive process upholding multilateralism, international cooperation, and reduce inequality and poverty at global level. I thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished Delegate of Chile, followed by United Kingdom and Saudi Arabia.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Quisiéramos asociarnos a los comentarios realizados por el distinguido miembro de Brasil y quisiéramos también agradecer a la mesa por la conducción de esta etapa del proceso, como a los co-leads de los distintos grupos de trabajo por las notas temáticas presentadas y darle bienvenida a la nueva co-chair de la mesa. Creemos que ha llegado el momento de avanzar hacia una discusión sustantiva, centrada en el contenido normativo de la Convención Marco. En particular, será crucial trabajar sobre los compromisos que definirán su alcance y efectividad. Desde nuestra perspectiva, esta convención debe establecer una arquitectura que permita responder con instrumentos eficaces a desafíos tan complejos como la evasión, la elusión, los flujos financieros ilícitos y la competencia fiscal nociva, para llegar a una tributación internacional equitativa. Ello requiere construir compromisos que reconozcan la diversidad de capacidades y contextos nacionales, especialmente en los países en desarrollo. Chile considera fundamental que esta convención no se limite a principios generales, sino que contemple también herramientas operativas concretas para fortalecer la capacidad fiscal de los estados, asegurar una asignación equitativa de derechos tributarios y contribuir al desarrollo sostenible en sus tres dimensiones. En esa línea, creemos que el trabajo debe priorizar compromisos que promuevan la justicia fiscal, la transparencia, la resolución eficaz de disputas y un enfoque centrado en derechos humanos, con especial atención a la progresividad del sistema tributario. Uno de los ámbitos donde estos debates adquieren especial urgencia es en la tributación de servicios. La normativa tradicional basada en la presencia física resulta crecientemente insuficiente frente a modelos de negocio digitalizados y deslocalizados. Será necesario avanzar hacia un entendimiento común sobre la existencia de nexos económicos más amplios que reflejen adecuadamente la generación de valor y las contribuciones reales en los distintos territorios. Asimismo, consideramos valioso que este proceso aproveche los diagnósticos, herramientas y experiencias acumulados en distintos niveles y espacios de cooperación que pueden servir de base para enriquecer nuestro trabajo. Reiteramos nuestra disposición a trabajar de manera constructiva, confiando en que las herramientas del sistema multilateral nos permitirán avanzar hacia soluciones comunes que sirven para todos. Esta es una oportunidad histórica para fortalecer la cooperación internacional en materia tributaria y para hacerlo de forma verdaderamente inclusiva, como Nación Unida, como foro universal que refleje la diversidad de perspectivas y desafíos que enfrentamos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Distinguished Delegate of United Kingdom, followed by Saudi and Morocco.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. The UK looks forward to continuing discussions to strengthen international tax cooperation. And we thank you, the Bureau and the workstream leads for your work in advance of the session. We recognise many developing countries face challenges in implementing existing rules. The UK is committed to working in partnership with other jurisdictions to create an ever stronger and more inclusive international tax system, building on existing international cooperation. A UN Framework Convention has the potential to play an important role in supporting this ambition. The UK therefore remains committed to working in partnership with other members and stakeholders to ensure we produce a framework convention and protocols that receive broad approval from member states. To achieve that, we believe it is crucial that the commitments are drafted at a high enough level so as to be future-proof and to help secure the widest buy-in from members. That would reflect that the Framework Convention is intended to establish the framework for ongoing cooperation. We also believe that high-quality economic and legal analysis will be crucial to assess the interaction between commitments in this Framework Convention and those in other international agreements, and any impacts on global trade. We encourage the committee to make a plan for commissioning such work during 2025. Similarly, we believe that the process would benefit from building on expertise from all relevant international and regional organisations, such as the Platform for Collaboration on Tax, the OECD G20 Inclusive Framework on Base Erosion and Profit Shifting, the Global Forum on Tax Transparency and Exchange of Information, and the African Tax Administration Forum, among others. We encourage the committee to set out a plan for how to achieve this join-up before the end of 2025. We welcome the opportunity to discuss these important issues over the next few days and will engage constructively with all partners. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished delegate of Saudi Arabia, followed by Morocco and Nigeria.
Thank you, Chair. I will deliver my remark in Arabic. السيد الرئيس، السيدات والسادة أعضاء الوفود، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بداية تشيد المملكة العربية السعودية بجهود رئيس لجنة التفاوض الحكومية الدولية بشأن التعاون الدولي في المسائل الضريبية لدى الأمم المتحدة والقادة المشاركين لمسارات العمل المنبثقة وأيضا سكرتارية اللجنة لمساهمتهم في إعداد وإصدار مذكرات المسائل الضريبية الخاصة بكل مسار ضمن اللجنة. السيد الرئيس، في هذا الصدد نتطلع إلى استكمال أعمال اللجنة من خلال المواءمة والتنسيق بين مسارات العمل والتركيز على المسائل الضريبية ذات الطبيعة الملحة التي تتطلب حلولا فعلية على المستوى الدولي. كما نسعى إلى إثراء عملنا المستمر عبر تضمين تنمية القدرات في كافة مسارات العمل. فيما يتعلق بالالتزامات المنصوص عليها في الشروط المرجعية للاتفاقية الإطارية، نرى أن تتم صياغة الالتزامات بشكل واضح ومتسق مع مخرجات النقاشات الفنية ضمن مسارات العمل للبروتوكول الأول والثاني حتى نتجنب إنشاء التزامات إضافية غير ذات صلة. في الوقت الراهن وفي إطار العمل على إيجاد الحلول للتحديات الضريبية، ينبغي أن نركز على معالجة التحديات الضريبية ذات الأهمية البالغة دون إعادة النظر في المسائل التي تعمل بشكل فعال اليوم، حيث أن اتباع مثل هذه الآلية يسهم في تحديث الأنظمة الضريبية التي لم تواكب التغيرات الاقتصادية العالمية، إضافة إلى مد جسور التعاون المشترك في سبيل تجنب وحل النزاعات الضريبية، مما يؤدي بكل تأكيد إلى دعم الدول التي تواجه تحديا في تنمية القدرات، والذي يعد جانبا أساسيا من جوانب هذا العمل المستمر لنتمكن من تحويل المخرجات المتفق عليها إلى نتائج ملموسة على أرض الواقع. من منطلق حرصنا على تحقيق نتائج عملية وقابلة للتطبيق ضمن إطار التعاون الضريبي الدولي، نود التأكيد على أن امتداد العمل إلى مجالات أخرى يجري نقاشها في مجددا على استمرارنا في دعم التعاون والتنسيق المشترك مع الدول لمواصلة العمل نحو تحقيق مستهدفات التعاون الدولي في المسائل الضريبية. وشكرا لكم.
Shukran. Distinguished delegate of Morocco, followed by Nigeria and Pakistan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, distinguished delegates, Morocco aligns with the statement delivered on behalf of the African Group and would like to make the following statement in its national capacity. Morocco would like to commend the dedication and the progress made so far under the 3 work streams and to reiterate its commitment to contribute to the successful development of the Framework Convention, recognizing it as the platform to establish an equitable and effective international legal framework to address our current and future tax challenges. Morocco is fully committed to advancing a multilateral tax governance system that is equitable and transparent and that support sustainable development and domestic resource mobilization. The United Nations Framework Convention must serve as a flexible legal foundation for future protocols and mechanisms that reflects the principles of equity, transparency, inclusivity, and the right of jurisdictions to a fair share of taxation of income generated within their borders. In this regard, Morocco supports that these commitments be included in the Framework Convention in clear terms. Morocco supports the commitment to prevent and resolve cross-border tax disputes emphasizing that the language used in the Framework Convention should be concise and flexible, focusing on the principles of fairness and legal certainty, and avoiding overly prescriptive and detailed rules that would be better addressed in the protocols. Morocco underlines that tax cooperation should not just be about addressing global tax gaps, but also about contributing to sustainable development and ensuring that developing countries can strengthen their own tax systems. Finally, we reiterate our strong commitment to contributing constructively to the discussions and supporting the establishment of a framework that lives up to the aspirations, rights, and interests of our countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Distinguished delegate of Nigeria, followed by Pakistan and Canada.
The Chair, Excellencies, and distinguished delegates. Nigeria aligns fully with the submissions of the African Group, and in addition wishes to make the following comments. One, Nigeria's participation in this process of developing the United Nations Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation and the early protocols is with a clear vision of ensuring an effective global tax environment that works for all. The vision of building a truly inclusive, effective, and future-proofed framework that reflects the realities of all countries, particularly developing countries, and delivers fair and equitable outcomes in the international tax system should not be sacrificed on the altar of legalism, technicalities, and politicking. As regards the Framework Convention itself, Nigeria is of the view that the Convention be anchored in broad language that allows for flexibility and adaptability as the tax environment continues to evolve. As much as Nigeria agrees that priority be accorded the early protocols, we believe that effective and strong governance structures, including issues of conference of the parties, well-resourced secretariats, and effective subsidiary bodies be instituted in the Framework Convention itself. As regards Workstream 2, that is taxation of cross-border services, Nigeria recognizes the inadequacies of current tax rules in a digitalized and service-driven global economy, which unduly denies countries of source of due tax revenue. Therefore, Nigeria will support a broad and future-proof scope that covers all cross-border services without requiring a physical presence, and that includes all technology-driven services. We will support the adoption of new nexus rules, such as significant economic presence and the like. The protocol should provide for a system anchored on equity, simplicity, efficiency, neutrality, and flexibility, and should also provide practical administrable solutions that enables domestic resource mobilization for all countries. On Workstream 3, that is prevention and resolution of tax disputes, Nigeria supports the design of a universal framework capable of addressing both bilateral and multilateral disputes. We call for preventive mechanisms such as joint audit, cooperative compliance programs, and improved risk assessment backed by commitment on timely and effective exchange of tax-relevant information, including through a central public country-by-country reporting platform. In all, Nigeria believes that our collective objective must be to create a framework that corrects systemic imbalances, ensures a fair allocation of taxing rights, removes barriers to sustainable development, and strengthens the ability of all countries to combat tax avoidance. Finally, Chair, Nigeria stands ready to work constructively with all delegations to deliver a framework, convention, and protocols that are principled, inclusive, and responsive to the needs of all nations and of all time. We must seize this opportunity to shape our international tax order that is just, balanced, and capable of meeting the fiscal needs of all. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Distinguished delegate of Pakistan, followed by Canada and Peru.
Pakistan is pleased to participate in this historic process to advance a comprehensive and inclusive framework for international tax cooperation. We thank you, the members of the Bureau, and the Secretariat for your efforts leading up to this important first session. Mr. Chair, the need for fair and effective international tax cooperation has never been more urgent. The current global tax architecture continues to reflect outdated dynamics and offers insufficient solutions to the challenges faced by developing countries. As a result, vast sums continue to be lost annually through tax avoidance, evasion, and illicit financial flows. Funds that could otherwise be used to finance development, reduce inequality, and strengthen national resilience. We believe that these negotiations mark a turning point. The adoption of General Assembly Resolution 79/235 has given us a clear mandate to elaborate a universal and equitable framework convention by 2027. Mr. Chair, Pakistan supports a robust and ambitious framework convention. In our view, broadly, the convention must ensure a fair distribution of taxing rights, particularly through the reaffirmation of source-based taxation principles. Support simplified and administratively feasible rules that reflect the realities of developing countries. Strengthen cooperation against illicit financial flows, including through effective exchange of information and capacity building. Include non-binding, scalable mechanisms for dispute prevention and resolution, while respecting national legal systems. And consider specific considerations for the least developed and developing economies, whose economies are particularly dependent on corporate income taxes and are disproportionately impacted by the base erosion and profit sharing and illicit financial flows. Mr. Chair, this is not just a technical negotiation. The outcome of this process will shape the global economic landscape for decades. For too long, international tax rules have failed to protect the needs and realities of developing countries. Pakistan believes this process must correct the structural inequalities of the current system and shift the center of gravity to the United Nations. We must utilize this opportunity to build a just and inclusive international tax order. Pakistan looks forward to working constructively with all delegations and with the shared commitment to an inclusive, equitable, and effective outcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished delegate of Canada, followed by Peru and Philippines.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will deliver my remarks in French. J'aimerais tout d'abord, au nom de la délégation canadienne, offrir mes sincères remerciements au président, aux coprésidents des groupes de travail, ainsi qu'aux membres du secrétariat pour le travail accompli depuis la dernière session. J'aimerais remercier de même les membres du comité qui ont participé aux travaux des groupes de travail que nous avons suivis avec grand intérêt. Il demeure l'intention du Canada de participer activement au développement de la Convention cadre et de ses protocoles afin de faire progresser l'inclusivité et l'efficacité des efforts de collaboration fiscale internationale. À titre de remarque d'introduction, permettez-moi de commenter brièvement sur deux questions en lien avec la Convention qui sont au centre de nos préoccupations à ce stade. D'abord, nous partageons le point de vue énoncé par plusieurs États membres que la Convention cadre devrait principalement chercher à établir le cadre conceptuel devant guider les efforts futurs en matière de coopération fiscale internationale et réserver l'opérationnalisation pratique de ces concepts aux initiatives subséquentes, notamment aux protocoles qui seront négociés dans le cadre de la Convention. Nous sommes d'avis qu'une telle approche est en accord avec la finalité d'une Convention cadre et contribuerait au succès de la Convention en minimisant les implications possibles de la Convention au chapitre du respect de la souveraineté fiscale des États. Nous sommes également d'avis qu'il serait préférable si les engagements s'alignaient de près avec le texte qui a été inclus au texte des termes de référence. Ensuite, tout en reconnaissant le défi que cela représente pour le comité et le secrétariat, nous encourageons le comité à entamer au plus tôt les discussions des autres dispositions devant être incluses à la Convention cadre. Il nous apparaît impératif, au vu des interactions qui existent entre les différentes dispositions, que les membres du comité puissent avoir une vue d'ensemble de la Convention et de son contenu, précisément afin d'être en mesure d'identifier et d'évaluer ces interactions entre les dispositions. En outre, il nous semble particulièrement important de faire progresser les discussions quant aux objectifs de la Convention et aux principes qui doivent en guider l'atteinte, puisque ces objectifs et principes doivent éclairer et informer la formulation des engagements devant être inclus à la Convention. Nous sommes d'avis qu'une plus grande certitude quant à la nature et à la formulation de ces objectifs et principes faciliterait les discussions qui ont cours quant aux possibles engagements. Pour terminer, si vous me permettez un dernier commentaire quant à la procédure, ma délégation souhaiterait encourager le comité à revoir son mode d'opération en ce qui concerne les travaux des groupes de travail. Nous sommes d'avis que la fréquence des rencontres qui a été adoptée jusqu'à présent ne facilite pas l'engagement par les délégations, de par l'important investissement en temps et ressources que la participation aux rencontres à un tel rythme requiert des délégations. La circulation tardive des documents constitue un obstacle supplémentaire à la participation des membres du comité, en ce qu'elle n'offre aux membres qu'une période très limitée pour se préparer aux rencontres. Ces pratiques, de notre avis, ne contribuent pas à l'objectif d'avoir des discussions inclusives et productives. Pour ces raisons, nous invitons le comité à réexaminer ces pratiques pour la suite des travaux. Nous espérons que le comité pourra se pencher plus en longueur sur ces questions au cours des prochains jours et je réitère l'intention de ma délégation de participer activement au développement et à la négociation de la Convention cadre. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, distinguished delegate of Peru, followed by Philippines and Zambia.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente, por concedernos el uso de la palabra. Con relación al convenio marco, el Perú considera que, dado que los compromisos se materializarán principalmente en los protocolos tempranos y futuros, estos deben ser de alto nivel y redactados utilizando un lenguaje amplio y basado en principios. Asimismo, estimamos importante iniciar también las discusiones sobre los demás elementos constitutivos de la Convención, como sus objetivos y principios rectores, en tanto estos orientarán sustancialmente el alcance y contenido de los principios que se adopten. Respecto al primer protocolo, el Perú saluda el trabajo del Comité Intergubernamental orientado a establecer disposiciones que permitan una asignación equitativa de los derechos de imposición sobre las rentas derivadas de la prestación de servicios transfronterizos. En este marco, consideramos que este protocolo debería abarcar todos los tipos de servicios transfronterizos y permitir a los Estados aplicar mecanismos de retención sobre los ingresos brutos. No obstante, nos mantenemos abiertos a examinar propuestas alternativas que puedan presentarse sobre estos temas, así como sobre la definición de los tributos cubiertos más allá del impuesto a la renta. Finalmente, en relación con el segundo protocolo, el Perú estima que este no debe incorporar mecanismos para la prevención o resolución de controversias que sean de carácter estrictamente doméstico y no involucren transacciones transfronterizas, lo que en inglés se denomina Purely Domestic Disputes. Reiteramos nuestro compromiso de contribuir de manera constructiva a la consecución de un resultado y un convenio exitoso. Gracias.
Thank you. Distinguished delegate of Philippines.
Mr. Chair, distinguished delegates, it is our pleasure to participate in this first session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee on the United Nations Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation. For developing nations, effective international cooperation in tax matters is not merely a technicality, it is a fundamental pillar for achieving sustainable development, mobilizing domestic resources, and ensuring a just global economic order. We believe that this convention presents a crucial opportunity to establish a truly resilient, inclusive, and equitable framework that addresses the unique challenges faced by countries like ours. The ultimate goal is to create a system that supports domestic resource mobilization and contributes to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. We are committed to a process that is transparent and allows for the full participation of all stakeholders. Our collective success will depend on our ability to work together and find common ground on the technical and substantive issues before us. On how the Framework Convention and the protocols should be drafted, we echo the comments of other members of the Framework Convention. That the Framework Convention contains high-level provisions that are not self-executing and that the specifics of the provisions should be reflected in the individual protocols. In our comments to Workstreams 1 and 2, the Philippines has consistently emphasized the need for international tax rules that are firmly rooted in the realities of developing economies. We have highlighted the substantial challenges posed by complex tax disputes, which are often resource-intensive and time-consuming. We advocate for practical and administrable solutions that are tailored to the capacities of developing countries. Furthermore, we believe that the framework must recognize the critical role of market jurisdictions in value creation, particularly within the digital economy, and reinforce the principles of source-based taxation as a vital tool for domestic resource mobilization. Regarding Workstream 3, the Philippines strongly supports an approach to dispute resolution that prioritizes flexibility and broad participation. We believe the protocol should offer a comprehensive suite of dispute prevention and resolution mechanisms, allowing member states to opt in and opt out of specific provisions based on their national legal frameworks, administrative capacities, and policy preferences. This opportunity is crucial as it acknowledges the diverse circumstances among nations and ensures that the Convention remains practical and relevant for all. Our commitment is to a framework that fosters genuine cooperation while respecting national sovereignty and promoting equitable outcomes for every country. We thank the Chair and the Secretariat and the co-heads of the work streams for your hard work and leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. The floor now to the distinguished delegate of International Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have the honour to deliver the general statement on behalf of the International Chamber of Commerce, representing businesses of all sizes and from all industries across the world. As permanent observer to the United Nations, we welcome the opportunity to provide input on the draft issues note for the Framework Convention. ICC and the global business community advocate for a global tax system built on the foundation of stability, certainty and consistency, which we believe is essential to foster cross-border trade and investment and ultimately the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals. In reviewing the draft issues note, we note the work plan's prioritisation of drafting specific commitments before other provisions of the Framework Convention. However, we would emphasise the crucial importance of addressing fundamental principles early in the process. The principles of tax certainty and the recognition of taxpayer rights and appropriate safeguards were acknowledged by many countries during the terms of reference negotiations, but formally deferred to a later stage of resolution. We believe that these principles are not merely procedural, but are fundamental to ensuring a balanced, fair and effective international tax framework. These principles should firmly be incorporated before detailed drafting begins. Turning to the commitments outlined in the draft issues note, we greatly appreciate the reference to prevention and resolution of tax disputes. In this context, we believe it is of paramount importance to recognise the active participation of taxpayers in dispute prevention and resolution mechanisms. Meaningful involvement of taxpayers who possess crucial facts and information is essential to the legitimacy, effectiveness and timely resolution of cross-border disputes. It's also important to explore alternative dispute resolution methods like arbitration or mediation, as well as mechanisms to prevent disputes like through cooperative compliance. The ICC cautions against a broad and undefined debate about fairness in the allocation of taxing rights. Such a subjective approach risks significant delay and frustration, and fairness should stem from transparent, objective, and legally binding rules that ensure predictability and due process for all. We also call for the explicit inclusion of tax certainty as a guiding principle throughout the Convention. In conclusion, the ICC would like to reiterate the vital role of the taxpayer and taxpayer participation across all work streams. Our global business community can provide practical examples and insights that are indispensable for developing effective and predictable tax solutions, which is why we continue to suggest the formation of Business Advisory Council that can inclusively represent companies from around the world to provide practical and constructive contributions to the process. We hope member countries can further consider this proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Distinguished representative of African Tax Administrative Forum.
Thank you, Chair, for giving us the floor. The African Tax Administration Forum is a platform for 44 African countries on tax issues, and we want to identify with the statements supplied by the distinguished delegate of Ghana on behalf of our members. We also want to identify with the statements supplied by Nigeria, Kenya, Tanzania, and a few others. We identify and align with those statements. ATAF is here, Chairman, to constructively engage with member states and other stakeholders with a view to furthering the very critical objective of this committee. Our participation is promised on three grounds, Chair. One, to support our members in whichever way possible to further the very noble objective of this process. And two, to support a robust, future-proof, enduring framework convention. In this sense, we call for speedy elaboration of the convention in manners that ensure flexibility and adaptability to changing international landscape. We underline the need to ensure the ability of the framework to deal with both current and future issues of international tax. We also call for immediate elaboration of the governance architecture of the framework with no further delays. Chair, the three elements and pillars of our engagement is to support the elaboration of the first ENLI protocol on cross-border services. We call for the members to ensure that the protocol is given the widest possible scope as to resolve critical issues that borders our members, inclusive of the abuse of intergroup services often used as vehicle for shifting profit away from our jurisdiction, as well as a key enabler of illicit financial flows. Chair, in general, we have observed a bit of constraint on the side of our members when it comes to support of the Secretariat, owing to dwindling resources. We observe that this is not consistent with the Resolution 79235, which called for robust resourcing of the Secretariat to support this process. We call on our members and the host organizations to ensure that the object and intent of the resolution in terms of support to this process is realized, as this is critical to getting this work stream to the desired finishing line. Chair, we supply this comment in addition to written comment which ATAF has submitted in response to the issue notes. We thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Distinguished representative of Oxfam.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Evelyn Kavenge, and I speak on behalf of the aforementioned organization, as well as the Tax Justice Network Africa, as well as the African Group, the African Civil Society Organizations Working Group on the UN Tax Convention. We align with the statement made by Ghana on behalf of the African Group, and on Workstream 1, we acknowledge the importance of addressing the historical imbalance of taxing rights through the commitment on fair allocation of taxing rights. While taxing where economic activity takes place and where value is created is seemingly a logical principle, this is obviously a principle that has been violated in the past. And just recently, the international deal struck by a few rich countries in order to exempt one country from the implementation of Pillar 2 illustrates this. And it illustrates how rich countries have been shaping the international tax architecture. There is no need for worries about duplication amongst other similar worries. We emphasize that member states are here to rectify a historical wrong where taxing rights have been imbalanced and particularly affecting Africa as well as global South countries. Therefore, as the working group, we propose an additional element in paragraph 14 of internation equity. This will future-proof the convention and ensure that there is both economic as well as political fairness. On Workstream 2, we remind member states of the importance of this protocol to many of our countries. According to UNCTAD, services add an estimated economic value of 61% to developing countries. Many of these countries, particularly African countries and other global South countries, are net importers of these services. Therefore, we emphasize the importance of ensuring that the rules proposed under this protocol should be simple and easy to administer. While much emphasis has been placed on nexus and profit allocation rules, we also encourage revisiting complex transfer pricing rules. We emphasize that technical assistance has not been enough. We need to create simple rules, including on tax transparency standards, such as country-by-country reporting, which has been mentioned by Nigeria, so that even the least developed amongst us can benefit. And this will embody the true definition of internation equity. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished representative of CCFD.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je souhaiterais m'exprimer au sujet de l'ambition de ce processus historique qui nous réunit aujourd'hui. Le mandat donné par l'Assemblée générale des Nations unies à cette Convention pour la coopération fiscale internationale est clair. Il ne s'agit pas d'écrire un simple corpus de règles techniques non contraignantes, de mécanismes optionnels, de principes faibles et d'engagements à tout moment révocables. Il s'agit de mettre en place un système fiscal international juste, inclusif, transparent et équitable, qui contribue véritablement au développement durable, lutte efficacement contre les abus et donne enfin une voix égale à chaque pays. Si défendre une convention ambitieuse signifie rompre avec un système fiscal injuste et à bout de souffle, alors oui, nous soutiendrons coûte que coûte un processus le plus ambitieux possible. C'est bien une question de justice. Et ce processus ne saurait être qualifié de duplication, car il est bien inédit. Ce n'est pas la coopération fiscale qui menace la souveraineté des États, mais bien l'évasion fiscale, la compétition fiscale et l'injustice fiscale. Et cette injustice est rendue possible parce qu'un petit groupe de pays est en mesure d'imposer des pratiques fiscales abusives qui compromettent la capacité de tous les autres, tant au nord qu'au sud, à percevoir efficacement les impôts. Et cette coopération ne peut plus être une option, car c'est une nécessité désormais. Cette coopération ne peut non plus être complémentaire d'un cadre, celui de l'OCDE, qui a tout simplement échoué, dont le premier pilier est mort-né et dont le deuxième est désormais une impasse, miné par les retraits, les exemptions, les concessions successives, un effondrement total de son ambition et une injustice flagrante. Des règles dont on sait qu'elles ne deviendront jamais globales. Mais l'espoir est permis, et nous pouvons dès aujourd'hui saisir cette opportunité du siècle en faisant de ce processus de négociation une réussite. L'heure n'est ni au flou, ni à l'hésitation. Il y a urgence et l'enjeu est bien trop grand. Celui de permettre enfin à chaque pays de financer dignement ses services publics, son éducation, sa santé, son système social, son développement, sa lutte contre le changement climatique. L'enjeu de cette convention, c'est tout simplement de donner à chaque pays les moyens de financer souverainement son avenir. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Distinguished representative of an institution for social economic studies.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Mi nombre es Adrián Falco y hablo en representación de INESC, que es miembro de la red Latindad. Quiero aprovechar esta oportunidad para solicitar a todas las delegaciones presentes que garanticen la plena participación de la sociedad civil. Quiero recordar para esto lo que dijo en agosto del 2017 el secretario general de la ONU, Antonio Guterres. No tenemos socios más importantes que ustedes, las organizaciones no gubernamentales. Las Naciones Unidas están comprometidas a trabajar con ustedes para lograr un futuro más pacífico, justo y próspero para todos. Hoy, por razones que desconocemos, ya que se han cumplimentado todos los requerimientos, muchas organizaciones que no tienen estatus ECOSOC y que han seguido de cerca este proceso y participado en las rondas de negociaciones el año pasado no están presentes. Esta es una etapa crucial para definir y estructurar una convención robusta que ayude a lograr una verdadera cooperación tributaria global y en este sentido hacemos un llamado para que estas voces de la sociedad civil no sean silenciadas. Por otro lado, queremos mencionar la importancia de traer a esta ronda de negociaciones el documento final del FFD4, el compromiso de Sevilla, que incluye decisiones pertinentes a este respecto. Entre ellas, promover la progresividad y la eficiencia en todos los sistemas fiscales para hacer frente a la desigualdad e incrementar los ingresos, promover sistemas fiscales progresivos y redoblar esfuerzos para hacer frente a la evasión y elusión fiscal de los individuos con alto patrimonio neto y garantizar su tributación efectiva con el apoyo de la cooperación internacional, respetando al mismo tiempo la soberanía nacional. También promover un gasto público eficaz y equitativo. También impulsar una tributación eficaz de los recursos naturales. Avanzar en los debates sobre la fiscalidad con perspectiva de género. Promover la consideración del medio ambiente, la biodiversidad, el clima en la programación fiscal en consonancia con las circunstancias nacionales, las prioridades de desarrollo sostenible y las estrategias de erradicación de la pobreza. Respetando la soberanía nacional, las opciones pueden incluir además impuestos sobre la contaminación ambiental y la polución. Alentar a los países a que integren el financiamiento de los sistemas y políticas de protección social. Finalmente, reafirmar que la búsqueda y el disfrute de los derechos humanos y las libertades fundamentales para todos, que abarcan los derechos civiles, políticos, económicos, sociales y culturales e incluyen el derecho al desarrollo, deben ser respetados, protegidos y promovidos sin distinción ni discriminación de ningún tipo. Con esto, esta convención debería incluir el compromiso de garantizar que todos los sistemas fiscales estén en plena consonancia con la realización progresiva de los derechos humanos, la reducción de las desigualdades y el desarrollo sostenible. Muchas gracias.
We have heard all the speakers in the list of speakers and no more requests for the floor. So by this, now we get a request from... disappeared again. Okay, so I think we are done for today. Okay, African Union, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the delegations. The African Union statement aligns with the position of the Africa Group, and at the onset, we would like to sincerely congratulate the newly elected Bureau members and express gratitude for the detailed issue notes and the thoughtful consultations. We gather at a moment of historic juncture as the global community under the UN designs an inclusive and just international framework convention on tax cooperation. This is not just another meeting. It is the first time in history we are coming together to create a new shared principle-driven framework. The recent G20 announcement regarding Pillar 2 exemptions reminds us of the current broken and unfair tax architecture. The African Union is here with hope and determination to co-create a system that works for all, rooted in equity, transparency, and the sovereign right of every nation to raise revenue justly. The African Union priorities across the work streams are clear. On Work Stream 1, we emphasize developing a convention's structural and governance elements such as the Conference of Parties, the Secretariat and subsidiary bodies, due to their functional role and the need for sufficient elaboration time. On Workstream 2, we believe the protocol should be future-proof, covering digital and emerging services. It must uphold the principle of taxing where economic activities and value occur, follow simple rules, and include a multilateral solution to overcome existing tax treaty limitations. On Workstream 3, we urgently need to address cross-border tax disputes that disadvantage countries with limited access to mechanisms like mutual agreement, procedures, and arbitration. We call for a fair, accessible, and balanced dispute resolution framework that avoids replicating investor-state arbitration inequities. Mr. Chair, on a matter of institutional importance, implementation of Resolution 79/233, particularly operational paragraph 12 concerning necessary facilities and resources, including a technical secretariat, has been unacceptably slow. While recognizing UN liquidity constraints, this process must be a priority. It is a transformative opportunity to correct systematic imbalances and place the UN at the heart of global economic governance. The credibility of this process depends on timely institutional support and adequate resourcing. We urge the Secretariat and the wider UN system to accelerate implementation and ensure these efforts receive the backing it deserves. This unique opportunity to shape global tax cooperation belongs to all of us. It is inclusive, transparent, and must remain grounded in the fundamental principle of equity among nations. We thank the delegations, and we thank all the delegations for their engagement and call on everyone to bring their best ideas, boldest thinking, and deepest commitment to justice to the table. It is in this set of principles that we will ensure that developing economies and all economies are able to mobilize their domestic resources and channel them to effective development. Thank you very much.
So now we don't have any more requests for the floor, so I think we are done now with general statements. And before I adjourn the meeting, I just would like to recall that our next meeting will be tomorrow morning, Thursday, the 5th of August, in the same conference room at 10 a.m. So thank you all, and looking forward to see you tomorrow. And just final note for the co-leads, our meeting is still the same. We're going to meet this afternoon to coordinate. So the co-leads are not released. We still have some work to do. Thank you all, and I announce the meeting adjourned.